I never believed in ghosts. I had always thought cemeteries were just quiet places. Old graves, trees, stone paths, nothing more. That changed one night when I had to spend several hours alone inside a cemetery after midnight, and even now, I still don't understand who was walking behind me. I was working as a security guard at the time. It wasn't a difficult job. Most nights, I worked at a small private cemetery on the edge of town. The cemetery wasn't very large, but it was old. Some of the graves dated back more than 100 years. There was a small office near the entrance, a parking lot, and a long road that went through the cemetery. My main job was simple: lock the gates at night, check the grounds a few times, and make sure nobody was trespassing. Usually, nothing happened. Most nights were completely quiet. I actually liked working there. There was something peaceful about it, until one Friday night. It had been raining most of the evening. Around 11:30 p.m., I finished my last check and returned to the office. I was sitting at my desk when my phone rang. It was my supervisor. He told me there had been a problem with one of the gates on the other side of the cemetery. The electronic lock wasn't working properly. He asked me to go check it. I didn't think much of it. I grabbed my flashlight and walked outside. The rain had stopped, but everything was still wet. The cemetery looked completely different at night. The trees moved slightly in the wind, water dripped from the branches, and the only light came from a few old lamps along the main path. I walked toward the back gate. It was about a 5-minute walk from the office. When I got there, I checked the lock. It seemed fine. I pulled on the gate a few times, nothing. I was about to call my supervisor when I heard something behind me. A footstep. I turned around. Nothing, just rows of graves. I stood there for a few seconds, listening. Then I heard it again, one slow footstep. This time, it sounded much closer. I raised my flashlight and pointed it toward the path. Nothing. I told myself it was probably water dripping from the trees. I checked the gate one more time and started walking back. That's when I heard the footsteps again. Behind me, step, pause, step, pause. I stopped. The footsteps stopped too. I turned around. Nothing. I started walking again, so did they. I walked faster. The footsteps behind me became faster too. I suddenly felt uncomfortable. I turned around one more time and shouted, "Who's there?" No answer. The cemetery went completely silent. I stood there holding my flashlight. Then, somewhere between the graves, I heard a woman's voice. Very quietly, she said, "Please don't leave." I froze. I didn't know what to do. The voice had sounded close, maybe 20 feet away. I pointed my flashlight toward the graves. There was nothing there. I called my supervisor. He answered immediately. I told him someone might be inside the cemetery. He asked me if I could see anyone. I said no. Then I heard something through the phone. My supervisor suddenly asked, "Where are you?" I told him I was near the back gate. He went quiet, then he said something that made my stomach drop. "Don't go toward the old section." I asked him why. He didn't answer. Instead, he told me to return to the office and wait for him. I started walking back. I tried not to look around. But halfway there, my flashlight suddenly flickered, once, twice, then it went out. I hit it against my hand. Nothing. I was standing in complete darkness. I could barely see the path. Then I heard footsteps again. This time, they weren't behind me. They were coming from somewhere ahead. Slowly, someone was walking toward me. I couldn't see them, but I could hear them. Step, step, step. I stepped off the path and stood between two large trees. The footsteps stopped. I waited. Nothing. Then I saw a light in the distance, a small white light. It looked like someone holding a flashlight. The light moved slowly between the graves. I thought it was my supervisor. I stepped back onto the path. "Hey!" I shouted. The light stopped. I called his name, no answer. Then the light slowly turned toward me. I could see the outline of a person standing far away. It looked like a woman. She was wearing something long and dark. She wasn't moving. I raised my flashlight again. It suddenly turned back on. I pointed it toward her. But the person was gone. There was no one there. I immediately started walking toward the office. I didn't care about the gate anymore. I just wanted to get out. As I walked, I noticed something strange. There were fresh footprints on the wet ground. They were coming from the direction of the old section, and they were heading directly toward me. I stopped. The footprints stopped too. I looked behind me, nothing. Then I looked down again. There was another footprint, right in front of my shoe. I stepped backward. Another footprint appeared, then another. It looked like someone invisible was walking toward me. I ran. I didn't look back. I reached the office, locked the door behind me, and called my supervisor again. He arrived about 20 minutes later. When he came inside, I told him everything. The footsteps, the woman's voice, the figure, the footprints. He didn't laugh. He didn't tell me I was imagining things. He just looked at me and asked, "Did you hear her say anything else?" I told him no. He stared at the floor for a few seconds. Then he said, "About 15 years ago, a woman died here." I asked him what that had to do with anything. He said she had been buried in the old section. Her husband used to visit her grave every night. Apparently, one night he disappeared. They searched the cemetery for days. They never found him. I asked why he had warned me not to go into the old section. He said the cemetery workers had always avoided it after dark. I asked him if he believed the stories. He looked at me. Then he said, "I don't know what I believe." He paused, "But I've heard the footsteps too." I quit that job a few weeks later. I never went back to the cemetery at night, but there's one thing I still think about. A few days before I quit, I was cleaning the security office. I found an old notebook inside one of the drawers. It belonged to a security guard who had worked there years earlier. Most of the pages were normal. Names, dates, notes about broken lights and damaged gates. But on the last page, there was one sentence. It had been written several times, over and over, the same sentence. "She doesn't want you to leave alone." I still don't know what that meant. But sometimes when I think about that night, I remember something I didn't notice at the time. When I heard the woman's voice say, "Please don't leave." She wasn't talking to me. She was standing somewhere behind me. And I think she was talking to someone else.